The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. The small village of Sleepy Hollow sat nestled by the side of the Tappan Zee River, not far from New York City, surrounded by dark forests and quiet hills. People in Sleepy Hollow were known for being a little strange. Sometimes the locals would talk about ghosts, witches, and mysterious happenings and whispers. Strange things happened here, and that gave the place a spooky reputation. One of the most famous things about the village was its quiet, peaceful atmosphere. It felt like time moved slower in Sleepy Hollow. There were no loud factories or bustling crowds. Instead, there was an eerie stillness that people couldn't explain. Even the trees and hills looked a little darker, like they were hiding secrets. But there was one person who wasn't content with the quiet: Ichabod Crane. Ichabod Crane was a teacher in the village, and he was unlike anyone else in Sleepy Hollow. He was tall, thin, and awkward, with long limbs that made him seem like a skeleton in a coat. His face was narrow, and he had a large nose that stood out a bit too much. His hair was straight and black, and he always wore it combed in a neat part. But despite his odd appearance, Ichabod had one thing going for him: his ambition. Ichabod didn't come from Sleepy Hollow. He had moved to the village from Connecticut to take a job teaching in the local school. Though he wasn't very impressive in terms of looks or strength, Ichabod was smart, and he used his brains to get ahead. He wasn't above flattering the rich people in the town to earn their favor and make sure he stayed employed. But despite his best efforts to impress everyone, there was one thing he wanted more than anything: wealth, and preferably a wealthy woman. He had his eyes on one in particular: Katrina Van Tassel, the daughter of the wealthiest family in the village. She was young, beautiful, and had a large inheritance waiting for her. Ichabod spent a lot of time at her house, trying to win her favor, and of course, her fortune. Unfortunately for Ichabod, Katrina wasn't the only one interested in her. There was also Brom Bones, a local guy who was strong, confident, and much more suited to the rural village life than Ichabod. Brom was known for his wild behavior. He was a prankster, a fighter, and a bit of a troublemaker. He was also a natural leader, and most of the villagers respected him, even if they didn't always approve of his antics. Brom Bones had been courting Katrina for a while, and while she seemed to enjoy his attention, she wasn't exactly in love with him. But she liked the idea of having a strong, confident man by her side. Ichabod, on the other hand, was desperate to win Katrina's affection, and he saw Brom as a serious rival. This competition between the two men added a tense edge to the already tense atmosphere in Sleepy Hollow. Ichabod's patience with Brom started to wear thin, and he began to act more desperate in his efforts to win Katrina's love. One evening, Ichabod was invited to a party at the Van Tassel house. This party would be the perfect opportunity to impress Katrina and hopefully get her to choose him over Brom. He rode to the Van Tassel's farm on his horse, Gunpowder, feeling excited but nervous. As he neared the house, he noticed something strange. The evening was dark and filled with mist, and Ichabod could feel the eerie atmosphere of Sleepy Hollow. It was a place where strange things happened, especially at night. During the party, Ichabod did his best to win Katrina's attention. He performed, he danced, he told stories, and he tried to be the center of attention. But all the while, Brom Bones watched him with a mischievous grin, knowing that Ichabod was desperate to impress. As the night wore on, Ichabod, feeling a little defeated by Katrina's lack of interest, decided to leave the party. He thanked the Van Tassels for their hospitality, grabbed his things, and rode off into the night, still feeling the tension in the air. He didn't want to lose to Brom, but he couldn't help feeling like he had. The road back to Sleepy Hollow was long and dark. The moon was covered by thick clouds, and the only light came from the occasional flicker of the stars. The woods around him were silent, and the only sound he could hear was the slow thud of his horse's hooves on the dirt road. Suddenly, Ichabod felt like something was watching him. He tightened his grip on the reins, trying to shake off the eerie feeling. But then he heard a loud, distant galloping sound. He stopped, listening carefully, and heard it again, louder this time. It was a horse, but the sound was different. It was faster, closer. Ichabod looked around, his heart pounding in his chest. That's when he saw him. A figure, tall and dark, was riding toward him through the mist. The rider was wearing a long cloak, and Ichabod could just make out the shape of a headless man. His head was missing, replaced by a dark, empty space. The rider's horse galloped faster, its hooves pounding the earth like thunder. Ichabod's blood ran cold. He had heard the stories about the Headless Horseman, a ghostly figure who roamed the area at night, searching for his lost head. Some said he was a soldier who had died during the Revolutionary War and had never found peace. Others said he was just a legend meant to scare children. But now, as the headless rider came closer, Ichabod realized that the legend was no longer just a story. Ichabod turned his horse and rode as fast as he could, his heart racing. The sound of the headless rider's horse grew louder, and Ichabod could hear the rider's low, hollow laugh echoing through the night. With every turn he took, the rider seemed to be gaining on him. The wind whipped through Ichabod's hair, and the hooves of the horses pounded louder and louder. Ichabod urged his horse forward, willing it to go faster, but it was no use. The rider was right behind him. Finally, as Ichabod neared a bridge, the headless rider let out a terrifying yell. Ichabod looked back to see the rider hurl a dark, heavy object at him. It was a pumpkin, glowing eerily as it sailed through the air. Ichabod barely had time to react. The pumpkin struck him hard in the head, and everything went black. The next morning, Ichabod was nowhere to be found. The villagers searched for him, but there were no signs of where he had gone. His horse, Gunpowder, was found tied up by the side of the road, but Ichabod was gone. People speculated about what had happened to him. Some said he had been taken by the Headless Horseman. Others claimed that he had simply run away in fear. Whatever the truth was, Ichabod Crane was never seen again in Sleepy Hollow. As for Katrina Van Tassel, she eventually married Brom Bones, who had always been the more confident and charming man in the village. Some of the locals whispered that Brom had something to do with Ichabod's disappearance, but there was never any proof. After all, Brom was known for his pranks, and he certainly knew how to get under Ichabod's skin. Sleepy Hollow went back to its quiet, eerie routine, and the story of Ichabod Crane became just another mystery, another legend to tell around the fire. And though the village was still as quiet as ever, there were always a few who looked into the shadows of the forest, wondering if the Headless Horseman was still out there, waiting for the next person to challenge him.